Heilman. Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, I'm excited because my guest today is actually he's joined me a couple times in the past. I spoke with him earlier this year about Kingdom Story Company's movie Ordinary Angels and then Unsung Hero. But they have a new film coming out October 4th, comes out this weekend. It's called Whitebird, and to say this is a great movie would be an understatement. This is a film that I think everybody should go see because it has such a powerful message. And I am pleased to be joined today by the producer and filmmaker, Andy Erwin, half of the famous Erwin Brothers film team. Andy, how are you doing today, man?
Man, Jay, it's always good to be with you and talk stories and talk Kingdom. It's they're letting me tell stories for a living still, so it's a good day.
Yeah, well, Kingdom Story Company, you and Kevin Downs and company, you guys have been keeping busy this year because you guys, I know Ordinary Angels was supposed to come out last year, but by the end of 2024, you guys have had three films that have come out, Ordinary Angels, Unsung Hero, and White Bird now. And, when I talked to you earlier this year about those films, you were excited about that. And, I was too. But when I saw this film, man, like I said, this was such a profound film, and I think it really comes along at a day and time that it's this kind of story is really needed. So the film is called Whitebird, and it stars Ariella Glazer, Orlando Schwartz, Bryce Geiser, Gillian Anderson, and Helen Mirren. And this one is not only a great film, but people are probably wondering, what is this movie about? And of course, how does it tie into the 2017 hit movie Wonder?
Yeah, Jay, it was really cool when it was brought to us. I remember when I saw the movie Wonder, and for people that remember that film, it was starred Julie Roberts and Owen Wilson and Jacob Tremblay, and it was just about a little kid named Augie that had some physical challenges and some disabilities, and he was made fun of for it at school, and then he just won over the whole school by him really his acts of kindness. And it was just a beautiful story that was based on the book. It was a huge hit film in 2017. And I remember when I saw it in theaters, I was like, oh my goodness, I would love to be involved in something like this. I didn't know that there was a spinoff coming. And so there was another graphic novel that was released that the author for Wonder wrote that was a spinoff story about the character in Wonder that was the bully, Julian. And so Julian was this guy that got expelled from school for bullying Augie. And we follow him now in his new school where he doesn't fit in. He has been kind of ostracized because of being a bully. Everybody is kind of knows about what he's done. And he's just struggling to fit in. And his grandmother visits from France. And of course, his grandmother is played by Oscar winner Helen Mirren. And she just is spectacular in anything she does, but in this role, she's so special. And she comes home and tells him, "You don't know your history. You don't know my story." And she tells him about being a little girl as a Jewish girl in Nazi occupied France and all the persecution she endured, and an unlikely hero of this little boy in her class that was had physical deformities that stood up for her at the risk of his own life. And there's just a beautiful line in the film that she says, when an act of kindness could cost you your life, it becomes something of a miracle. And that's kind of what this story is about. It takes that theme of kindness and adds the stakes of needing courage. And it just plays out beautifully in this historic backdrop of people standing up for this little Jewish girl at the risk of their own life.
Yeah, exactly. And this movie was it was very well done, and it was just a film that really reminded me of films that I had seen in the past. Obviously, there's been a lot of films that have come out over the last 40 years about World War II, the Holocaust and everything. And many of them can be hard to watch, but this is history. These things actually happen. And though this one's not necessarily based on a true story per se, it represents what they went through. And as I'm
Right.
watching this film, my wife and I are sitting here watching this, kind of thinking back to this day and age, because I've seen interviews with Holocaust survivors and stuff,
Right.
and we can only just imagine from their words what they went through, but to actually go through this is just it's crazy that these kind of things actually happened. And this film is like kind of in the same vein as, Schindler's List. Of course, a lot more graphic movie with Schindler's List, but there's been a couple films that have come out recently that have really highlighted this period of time. There was one with Anthony Hopkins that came out
Yeah,
uh,
one it's really
earlier,
good.
yeah, earlier this year. So it's really cool that movies like this come out and it kind of like act as a history lesson, letting people know now, really removed from that period of time, that this kind of stuff really happened. These people really went through these kind of things. And it's great that a film like this highlights it in a way to where it can teach people. And I
Yeah.
think probably what you guys are hoping is that this kind of movie can act as a teaching lesson to those that might be in this situation now, although in a different time.
Yeah, it's amazing because a lot of people don't know their history, and so they look at this period of time and they don't even really completely understand what's going on. So, I think it's a story that's super timely. When it was shot, our current state of the world wasn't what it is. But you look at what's happened now and since October 7th last year, how the world has really kind of changed. And you say, oh, that's how this stuff happens. And so it is a very timely story. And the scene that really got me for being a part of this was the moment when all the kids, the Jewish kids, are being rounded up at the school, and the Nazis, the SS officers, are coming to arrest them, take them to what they say is to be reunited with their family, but it's really to be taken to concentration camps.
Yeah.
And the priest that is the headmaster for the school, and then some of the teachers, one of them, the teachers that are nuns at the school, one of the teachers, at the risk of her own life, says, "I go with my students," and she gets on the transport knowing that that means she's going to a concentration camp.
Yeah.
And so I was like, just the idea of Christians standing up for these Jewish kids, I think, was really a beautiful kind of uh, what we believe just being displayed. The thing I do love about the movie is Mark Forster directed it. Mark Forster is a filmmaker that I'm a big admirer of. I've loved his work from Finding Neverland to Christopher Robin to A Man Called Otto. He's just a master storyteller. And Mark, what he did that was so brilliant, was he masked it in this whimsical love story. And so there's it's not it does take on so many of the serious things like a Schindler's List would, but it does it through this realm of this beautiful, innocent love story between this boy and girl. And it's whimsical. And Mark Forster wrote the book on whimsical. And so not too dissimilar to what he did with a movie like Finding Neverland. It has that same kind of whimsy to it. So it's very accessible to a family audience to take on a serious subject, but it very much fits in the same lineup with Wonder.
Yeah, and growing up, watching Winnie the Pooh and stuff like that as a kid and stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure about Christopher Robin when it came out, but Ewan McGregor killed it in that movie.
Yeah,
But
he
that
did.
film was like really took that whole all those stories that we grew up watching on TV and stuff and really turned it into an amazing film. And I think Mark did the same thing
Yep.
with White Bird as well. I mean, this was just very well done, a very engaging story, and just really it offered a teaching moment, I
Yeah.
think, in my opinion, to those watching it. And with Kingdom Story Company, the company that you do and you and your brother and Kevin put together, these are the kind of projects that you guys have been known for.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of curious now that Whitebird is out, what's next on the slate for you guys? You guys have anything else in the works that may be coming out this year or perhaps next
Yeah.
year?
Yeah, we always look for stories that we feel like deliver a rush of hope. And that's kind of our signatures. We look for redemptive stories that show what we believe, and they result in this kind of rush of hope. They bring you to your feet in the theater and make you want to go out and make a difference in the world. And I think um, it's been exciting to see that kind of idea of faith genre films kind of expand and that sandbox to expand. we're grateful to be in partnership with Lionsgate. Lionsgate just gives us a lot of swings at the plate. They let us make our movies. And that's
Yeah.
because the audience has been really loyal and they show up and they vote for their movie ticket. And when you go to the movie theater and you buy a ticket to see it in the theater, it communicates loud and clear to the studio system that we want more of things like this. So, we typically have done no more than one film a year for a long time. This year we've had three, and we've got another one coming out. So, Whitebird is in theaters now. It's our third film this year, and then next up in November is the movie Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And so, Dallas Jenkins, that created The Chosen, brought us his passion project for this film based on the beloved, little Christmas novel from the 70s. And he's read it every year to his kids since they were really little. And so he wanted to make the story and he wanted to bring this kind of quirky tone of like, what would it feel like to do a Wes Anderson film for kids, mixed with kind of a Norman Rockwell Christmas card. And it's just all things, it's just a Christmas classic. And this movie, it delivers. I showed it to my wife and daughters the other day. We watched an early cut, and they watched it and it got to the end. And when it got to the beautiful turn at the end, my wife was crying, and I looked over and my little 7-year-old daughter was crying. And she's
Mm.
like, Dad, I'm crying at the movie. I've never cried at a movie before. This is my first cry. And she's like, this is my favorite thing that I've seen that you guys have done. And so it's really cool. So that one's going to be in theaters in early November everywhere. And so that's going to be one people can look forward to. And then we're off to the races making more movies. It's been exciting.
Well, I'm looking forward to that one. I've seen previews for that one. Dallas Jenkins, of course, has talked about it a lot on Facebook, in addition to Chosen. So I'm looking forward to that one. It looks really funny, but it looks like a great film. And you and your brother John have done a lot of movies over the years. And I actually did an interview with Coach Joe Kennedy, who, of course, is
Yeah,
the subject of the new film Average Joe. These two films are
sure.
coming out around the same time. And when I was talking to him, I noticed something in the background. He had a picture of a movie poster for Woodlawn. And
Yep.
we got on that subject. I'm like, that's one of my favorite films. That was actually one of the first films I had done promoted with you guys and interviewed you guys for.
Yeah.
And just since then, man, I've loved every movie that you guys have put out. And you guys just continue putting out films that are not only entertaining, but movies that have great messages and can really have an impact on a lot of people. And going back to White Bird, a lot of people, when you're involved in film, obviously you want people to take away something from each film when they go to the theaters to see it. So with White Bird, when people go to the theaters this weekend to see the film, what is it that you hope that they take away the most after watching it?
I think I just want them to take away the idea of courage. And I think kindness really does make a difference, but kindness that doesn't take courage is a little cheap. And I think right now we're in a place where to speak out for what's right and to stand behind people with kindness can cost you a lot. And I think that's when you really figure out what you believe. And this is a story of a little boy standing up for what he believed because it was the right thing to do, and saved a life and put his on the line. And I do agree with that line in the movie that becomes somewhat of a miracle. And I think uh, as a whole, our world needs a lot more miracles right now. And those miracles are doing the right thing to, in little moments each day. And so I think that's the power of this message and of this story of Whitebird. And so it's one that I firmly stand behind. I think it just has a heart to it that will leave you wanting to do the right thing. So I hope people really get that loud and clear. It's one that you can enjoy with your whole family, and it's a special story.
Amen. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us. Before we leave, you have a podcast that I'm
Yeah.
hoping to talk with you a little bit more in detail about. But for those who are not familiar, you do a podcast where you actually talk to folks in the industry and stuff. Quickly, tell us about that real quick, and what's next for you with this podcast. I'm excited to see this.
Yeah, so we started a podcast earlier this past year called The Storytellers, and and it was just the idea that we spent so much time making our movies that we haven't done a really good job of having a conversation with the audience. So somebody threw the idea of a podcast out. My dad was in talk radio growing up, and so I just said, you know what, I don't think we're very interesting, but we've got a lot of fun friends. So what if we let the audience be a part of the conversations we have behind closed doors, to be able to kind of let them kind of just be a fly on the wall. So we released season one, had the first 15 episodes released earlier this year, had an amazing guest list. Everybody, from Dennis Quaid to Patty Heaton, to Willie Robertson, and the new season just started just the other day. So we're two episodes in. Gary Sinise from Forrest Gump was our first show, one of my heroes, and then this past week was Zachary Levi that we had an American Underdog that people know from Shazam. So catch it. It comes out at new episodes drop every Tuesday. It's got an amazing guest list this year, where we get a chance to let people behind closed doors and kind of have a fun time with us. And wherever you get your podcast, it's the Storytellers. It's fascinating. Can't wait to talk to you more about that.
Amen. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate you coming by. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. And dude, I'm just praying that Whitebird, that the Lord can use this film just like the rest of them when it's in theaters this weekend. So thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to our next chat, man. More about this podcast and more about the film